Welcome to Dave C. Straight from the Pit. Dave C. here. I thought for today's show, we could talk about Zartan and his brother and sister, Xandar and Zarna, and just about their color changing technique. I got a few comments recently on my channel here, asking me to show how they change color, and if they still change color after 40 years of being a toy, because the original Zartan was 1984, of course, and yeah, that was like 40 years ago. So we're going to see if he changes. So I just set them down out in the direct sunlight, so hopefully we'll see them change. Looks like the Zarna with earrings is already starting to. She's turning more green. Oh, and the non-earring Zarna is starting to change. Yeah, they're going green. So for being like 38, 40 years old, that's a pretty good quality toy. That the color change is still something that is happening after all these years. Yeah, he really is now. Look at him. You can see the darker green. Hopefully the camera's picking it up. And I'll bring him back downstairs out of the light so we can see the normal color again. So back inside here, and as you can see, they're still green, like a darker tan green color. But they should start to change back now to the normal tan color. So maybe we can watch inside here as they turn back to the original tan coloring. You can see Zartan there. His full body is pretty much gone back to the tan. And earrings, Zarna, she's holding on to her color so far. And there they are, back to normal. And of course, they were the only figures released in the 80s that had the color changing ability. And I have two Zarnas here because one of them, the one on the right, was the one I first had as a kid. And she has earrings, as you can see. And the one on the left doesn't have earrings. And it's a bit of a different face sculpt. Now, first I had the one on the right, and I was happy with that. And one day at the mall, I saw the one on the left there, and I was like, wait a minute, she looks different. And yeah, so the one on the right was an earlier release. And I was recently able to obtain the one on the right, which is a more rare version, a little bit harder to find. And in Mark Mello's book, there is a bit of a write-up here about that for the figure. And as you can see there, it says Zarna variants, with and without earrings. So this is a Toys R Us that is in the city by where I live. And when I was a kid in the 80s, I would get all my Joes here. And I thought I would show you guys this. David Hasselhoff in '84 was there for the opening of the store, and I'll never forget that. At that time, the store was a lot larger. I was veering off to the right there to show you the actual size. Now it's about half the size inside as it was back then. But the store hasn't changed much. The front, these are the doors where you would go in. And I distinctly remember going through these doors and then veering off to the right. There's a bit of a corridor with a cement wall. And it would kind of lure you down that side. And then there'd be the Jeffrey mascot there. And I remember he would greet you as you go in. And then you could see the full size of the store, and it would shock us as kids. And of course, here's the modern day G.I. Joe section, which is nowhere near the size that it was back in the 80s. And it was cool when I was there the other day that they had some 80s card art to make it feel kind of, like it was 84 again or 85. And an interesting thing about this is after I had filmed this, there was a young kid there, probably about 7 or 8, and he was there with his dad. And he picked up that Snake Eyes card there, and he said, Dad, I really want to get this. I really like his gun. And the dad said, no, you can't have anything to do with guns. You can't have that. And I remember thinking later on as I was walking through the store that that's the difference maybe between now and then, is that back then military and guns weren't really treated like a big deal, whereas now they kind of are. And it started kind of in the 90s there when they banned a lot of the military stuff. But anyway, this is Limeridge Mall, and if you look across the street there, you can see that Toys R Us is over there, where we just were. So in the 80s, I would go to Toys R Us there, and then we go to the mall here too, Limeridge Mall. This store used to be called Eaton's at the time, and we would always go to this mall to get 80s Joe stuff for me, among other things, of course. But my memories are all G.I. Joe. But yeah, in this mall there was Sears, there was Robinson's, there was Eaton's, and there was a Kmart. And this was the main entrance that we would go into. Although the real main entrance is at the front of the mall that everybody else would go into. But I remember we'd always park over here because it was kind of a nice, quiet, sneaky kind of way to get into the store without dealing with all the traffic. And I remember coming here with my Nana and my Aunt Carol and Mom. And Aunt Carol would have a smoke out here. And it's funny because that's the exact same cigarette container type thing that they had back then. It was a garbage, but also a little ashtray. But she used to have a smoke out there. And another interesting thing when I was here the other day I saw was on the brick here is where the phones used to be. And I remember her calling my cousin, Jeremy, or calling Uncle Terry if we needed a ride or what have you, but always at those phones right there. So it kind of took me back right to like 84, 85, 86. And then looking out these windows and maybe waiting for Uncle Terry to come to get us or whatever. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing to see again. Just go to a place where I remember getting Joe's, like the Baroness in '84. I saw her there for the first time. I wasn't able to get her, but I saw her there. And while I was there, I thought I would go to the old theater entrance, and this is it here. And yeah, we saw movies like Back to the Future, Dragnet, Spies Like Us, Cocoon, The Goonies, Ghostbusters, Fletch, European Vacation, A View to a Kill. All those classic 80s films we saw at this old theater here. The theater isn't there anymore. It's all been torn out, but this is the same entrance. So just I thought I would film this because it was kind of a monumental place for us to go to as kids to see these films. And you used to be able to walk in here, then you go down these stairs, and then you could go to the theater. It was called a Famous Players Theater back then. But yeah, all those films are so great, especially Back to the Future. Such an awesome film. And this is the other side of the mall. And it's the back entrance to the old Sears store. And across the street you can see there's Toys R Us. I just wanted to show you the proximity of all this stuff because it was pretty close. So it was really great back then. You could just go to the mall and go to Toys R Us, go to all these stores and get your Joe stuff. And up top there was one of the entrances and exits. And I remember the Dreadnought Sears exclusives and the Crimson attack tank and the Hiss tank. I remember walking out those doors after I had seen them and talking to my dad and saying, "I don't really want those, Dad. They're just painted. They're not, there already was a Mobad and there already was the Ram bike. They looked funny." I remember telling my dad that. And then another thing I remember about this is you'd walk down this little corridor thing here with the railings, and you could go in the basement there of Sears. It was the lower level, not really the basement, just the lower level. But yeah, I would always go to the toy section there, and I remember seeing so much great stuff there, like the USS Flag and Terradromes, all that stuff. And this was kind of an entrance that me and my dad would always kind of go in. Not really the rest of the family. Sometimes he would take me out for like a treat. We could go, and I just remembered another memory now that I see coming up these steps here is there was the Globulus Cobra Law 3-pack. And I remember I really wanted it, and I bought it. But then I remember when we were leaving, he was like, "Why do you want that?" As we were coming out here. And I said, "I just really like it because it's not on the cartoon yet. I don't know what it is." It turned out it sucked really, right? Like Cobra Law, but at the time I didn't know that. But I remember coming up those stairs, and I remember my dad thinking like it didn't look like G.I. Joe, like it wasn't something I should have. I thought I could close out this video just by showing some of the recent pickups that I've obtained. And I got this rather large 1984 Baroness poster, which I think will look nice down here in the pit, as she's my favorite Cobra figure. Her and Firefly, 1984. And of course I already mentioned the earrings Zarna. And I was able to get 1988 Tiger Force Flint. And this one I was looking for a long time to get, and I just could never seem to find it. And if I did find it, it was always just not priced, realistically. But I was able to get them complete. It's a 1989 Sergeant Slaughter's Marauders Spirit, which is a repaint of the 1984 Spirit. And I just really like this figure. And mostly because he looks pretty much like the 84 Spirit that I love. But it's just so cool that he comes with Freedom, the eagle. And Joe gave me that stand, if you're wondering. That's not something you can just buy. He has Freedom above him, and Joe made that for me, that stand. It's pretty wild. And then I was down at my comic shop, and I was able to get the latest IDW, which was number 304, and it's February. And I haven't really read the entire book yet, just kind of flipped through it. But it looks really good, and I like how it ends here. On the last page, it seems like Zartan, who we were talking about earlier, he goes to meet Destro and the Baroness in Scotland. And it looks like they're going to have a plan to fight Serpentor and maybe use Cobra Commander again to their advantage, as they've done in the past. And also, I was able to get the Transformers and G.I. Joe crossover, which is the Hiss tank, and Megatron, who of course is the leader of the Decepticons, the bad Transformers from the 80s. And I got this because I had Megatron back in '84, and I got him at Toys R Us, along with Optimus Prime. But I liked the Megatron because it was a Walther P-38 handgun. The robot would transform into this handgun, and it was official size for a Walther P-38. And I remember I took it to recess one time at school. I was out on the playground, and the teachers told me I couldn't have it out there. And that's one memory that I won't forget. But yeah, so it was just kind of cool that back then guns were just kind of guns, and they didn't treat them like they were anything too crazy, because they actually made a toy that transformed into a handgun. But yeah, it's a pretty neat transformer, and it transforms into a Hiss, and it comes with a Baroness. And if we had this in the 80s, I think we would have freaked out as kids, because Transformers and G.I. Joe were just as popular as each other during the 80s there. And it came with this Baroness, 3 3/4 inch remake. And it's O-ring, so that's good, because I have the other O-rings, the newer ones. And here's the Dreadnoks down here I set up with a couple more bikes. Those Maisto 118 scale bikes. And I thought they looked really good with these guys, because of course everybody knows that they weren't released with actual motorcycles back in '85, and maybe they should have been, because they're bikers after all. So I thought I'd get some scale bikes. Okay, thanks everybody for watching, and if you like this video, maybe subscribe. I know I never ask for that, but yeah, you can if you want to, and if you don't want to, that's good too. And yeah, we'll see everybody in the next one. Okay, take care.